When a man starts to wake up, he naturally pulls away from the crowd. Not because he hates people, not because he feels superior, but because the usual ways of living stop making sense. The noise that once entertained him now feels hollow. The conversations that once filled his hours now sound like echoes with no substance. The endless chase for approval, for success, for belonging, it loses its grip on him. He doesn't withdraw out of anger. He doesn't retreat to punish the world. He simply sees too clearly to continue pretending. And so, without fanfare, without resistance, he begins to walk alone. At first, this confuses him. He wonders why the same pleasures don't satisfy him anymore, why gatherings leave him restless, why the talk of promotions, possessions, and gossip no longer holds his attention. He still shows up, he still listens, but something has shifted. He notices how much of life is a performance, how people laugh to be accepted, how they hide behind busyness, how they run from silence as though silence were dangerous. And once he sees this, he cannot unsee it. Awakening always carries a cost, and the cost is separation. People still wave, they still invite him, they still talk as they did before, but he no longer responds as they expect. He doesn't join in complaints he doesn't feel. He doesn't laugh at jokes that don't ring true. He doesn't nod along to beliefs he no longer shares. And without any confrontation, without any rejection, distance grows. This is not loneliness, it is solitude. It is the space between the man he once was and the man he is becoming. At first, it feels uncomfortable. He remembers the old belonging, the easy laughter, the sense of being part of something. But slowly he begins to notice that what he thought was belonging was often just conformity. What he thought was connection was often just distraction. And when he lets it fall away, what remains is something quieter, but also more real. He discovers a truth most never realize. Much of human connection is built on habit, not depth. People gather to pass time, not to share truth. They meet to escape their inner lives, not to explore them. They fill the air with words to avoid the silence between them. And when he no longer needs distraction, he sees how dependent others are on it. He doesn't resent them. He doesn't condemn them. He understands. He once lived the same way. But once you've seen through the illusion, you cannot return to it. You cannot pretend noise is music or performance is truth. So he lets it fall away. From the outside, he looks unchanged. He still smiles politely. He still fulfills his duties. But those around him sense something. They can't name it, but they feel it. They say he's quieter now. They say he's different. What they really mean is that he no longer reflects their values. He is no longer playing the role they were comfortable with. This unsettles them. Some admire him, others mistrust him, many simply drift away. Because to know him now would require them to see what he sees, and most are not ready. Most are not willing to question the things that keep them feeling safe. He once thought connection meant constant involvement, staying busy, showing up, playing along, nodding when others nodded. But now he sees that real connection requires honesty, and honesty is rare. Most relationships survive not because of truth, but because of shared illusions. As his illusions fall away, so do many of his connections, not through conflict, but through clarity. And yet, in solitude, he finds something unexpected. He discovers peace. What once felt like emptiness becomes stillness. What once felt like loneliness becomes freedom. He learns to sit with silence and realize it is not an enemy. He learns to walk alone and realize he is not abandoned. For the first time, he sees that much of what people call life is simply noise pretending to be important. He no longer seeks distraction to fill the silence. He no longer fears being with himself. And what once felt unbearable begins to feel sacred. In solitude, he discovers who he is without the eyes of others upon him, without an audience, without an image to maintain. He sees himself clearly. And that clarity, though uncomfortable at first, becomes a source of strength. This shift confuses others. They assume he must be disconnected, cold, even arrogant. But in truth, he is simply content with his own presence. He has faced the silence most people run from and discovered it wasn't silence at all, it was peace. He has stopped trying to mirror others to win their approval. He has stopped offering reassurances that deny what he sees. He no longer manages his image to keep others comfortable. And because of that, people don't know how to place him. Much of what people call connection is performance, a mutual agreement to maintain illusions. Once he steps outside that agreement, he disrupts it simply by being present. He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to change anyone's mind. But his refusal to play along makes others uneasy. The absence of familiar signals, flattery, validation, constant engagement feels like rejection to those who depend on them. And so many of his old friendships fade, not through conflict, but through disuse. He notices how often relationships are sustained through shared complaints, routine habits, or mutual reinforcement of identity. Once he no longer participates, those bonds weaken. He doesn't fight to preserve them. He doesn't force himself to fit. He allows them to dissolve. And what remains is something quieter, rarer, and far more true. True friendship, he realizes, is not built on illusion. It is built on recognition. Two people who see clearly, who don't need to complete each other, who don't demand performance, such meetings are rare, and they cannot be manufactured. They emerge only when both have let go of the need for illusion. Most social life is built on unspoken rules. You validate me, I'll validate you. We won't challenge assumptions. We'll pretend to agree even if we don't. He once played by these rules because everyone did. But once he stops, the dynamic breaks. He no longer comforts just to ease tension. He no longer pretends to agree when he doesn't. He no longer keeps peace at the cost of truth. This isn't defiance. It is clarity. And clarity is disruptive. People feel it. They can't explain it, but they know something has shifted. The familiar exchange of reassurance is gone. The noise that kept everything comfortable has fallen silent, and without it, conversations feel awkward, meetings feel tense. The foundation that once held his relationships no longer exists. But here is the paradox. The quieter his life becomes, the more authentic it feels. He stops seeking recognition. He stops needing to be understood. He stops measuring himself by how much space he takes in other people's lives. From the outside, this looks like withdrawal. But inside, it is the opposite. It is settling into something solid, something real. He still values connection, but not connection built on illusion, not connection that requires him to shrink or pretend, only the kind that emerges naturally, without demand, without pretense. Most people can't offer this. And so, he walks alone. But walking alone does not mean he is alone. It means he is no longer willing to trade truth for company. It means he is no longer seeking completion outside himself. It means he has found peace in his own presence. This is the final shift. He doesn't need the world to wake up. He doesn't need agreement to feel clear. He doesn't need validation to know who he is. He walks alone, yes, but not as an outsider, as a man who has made peace with the cost of truth. He walks with silence. He walks with clarity. He walks with freedom. And in that solitude, he discovers something the crowd never can, that to stand alone in truth is to stand with life itself. And yet, though he walks alone, he does not walk in despair. For solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the space in which something deeper begins to reveal itself. The man who no longer depends on the approval of others begins to hear what he had always drowned out, the quiet voice of his own being. It is subtle, like a whisper at first. It speaks not in sentences, but in feelings. A pull here, a resistance there, a sense of when something aligns and when it does not. Most people never notice it, for their lives are filled with too much noise. But when the crowd falls away and the man walks alone, the whisper grows clearer. This is intuition. This is the wisdom that waits in silence. He begins to see that much of his old life was a bargain against himself. He agreed to things he did not truly believe. He smiled when he was not happy. He worked jobs that drained him just to fit the mold. And he played roles that kept him safely hidden. But in solitude, all these disguises crumble. He stands before himself naked, and though it is uncomfortable, it is also liberating. For the first time, he sees his own face without the mask. He feels his own life without the constant pressure to please, and though it is raw, it is real. He realizes he would rather live with the discomfort of truth than the ease of illusion. The man who walks alone also begins to notice how life itself responds to his solitude. When he no longer chases, opportunities appear without forcing. When he no longer begs for attention, genuine connection comes on its own. When he no longer fears silence, creativity blossoms in ways he never imagined. The same silence that others flee becomes the very wellspring of his strength. Stories, ideas, insights, they rise like spring water from within, and he understands something he never grasped before, that much of life comes not from control, but from surrender. He no longer needs to shape everything with effort. He allows life to shape him, and in this allowing, things fall into place with a strange and quiet elegance. Of course, not everyone understands this. To the crowd, his life now looks uncertain. He seems less ambitious, less eager to prove himself. They whisper that he is strange, that he is lost, that he is wasting his time. But he sees what they cannot, that their rushing, their striving, their constant need to prove themselves is itself a trap. The crowd runs in circles, chasing what they never truly reach, and while they run, he walks slowly, alone. Yet with each step, he is more free. Walking alone does not mean rejecting the world. It means no longer being enslaved by it. He still meets others, he still speaks when he wishes, but he no longer depends on them to tell him who he is. His identity is no longer stitched from the threads of other people's approval. It arises from within, silent and steady, like a flame that does not flicker in the wind. There is a calm in his eyes, a steadiness in his step. He does not rush, he does not force, he is not desperate to impress or persuade. He knows that truth needs no defense. Authenticity needs no performance. Freedom needs no applause. This makes him mysterious to others. They cannot quite figure him out. Some are drawn to him, sensing in his presence the rare taste of honesty. Others are unsettled, for his calm exposes their restlessness, and his silence highlights their noise. But whether they admire or resent him, it no longer changes him. He has stepped out of the game. He realizes the universe does not ask him to manage it. It only asks him to be awake to it. And in this awakening, he finds freedom. He need not force himself to run faster, to compete harder, to fill every silence with sound. Life, in its vast intelligence, moves with or without his striving. The man who walks alone learns to trust that rhythm. He knows that awakening cannot be forced, it comes only when one is ready. So he simply lives, quietly, honestly, fully. And sometimes, those who are also ready, who are also tired of the noise, find themselves drawn to him. They recognize in his silence a reflection of their own unspoken longing. When such meetings happen, they are rare, but they are profound. Two people who do not need each other but choose to walk together for a while. No demands, no performances, no illusions, just recognition. These friendships are few, but they are deeper than 100 shallow ties, and they arise not from seeking, but from being.